And little did I know that would be the last cuddle I'd ever get with her, because later on that evening, I took two of my daughters to a birthday party and came home to find an ambulance in our driveway and my husband and children. I'm sorry, every time I tell it, I get choked up, but to find that she drowned. And I had to make a decision right there if I was going to follow what I had written about in my book and choose, because in my nightmare, and that recurring night I told you about, one of my children drowned on our property. I blamed my husband. We got a divorce. It ruined our whole lives. Like everything fell apart. And I knew that I could make a choice not to blame anyone, not to feel guilty, even though that's been that's been a struggle, and to just choose to know that everything's always happening for me, even if it's the worst thing you could possibly imagine.
Welcome in. I'm Kimberly. I'm so excited about our guest today. It is such a message of hope and healing. I can't wait for you to meet her. But before we get started, if you're enjoying this content, go ahead and click that subscribe button and hit the notification bell so you don't miss any of our upcoming videos. And if you'd like to keep abreast of what's happening around the planet, but it's a little overwhelming, and I don't blame you if you feel that way, you might want to sign up for our Friday morning email newsletter. It comes out every Friday morning. In it, we try to include what we feel are important developments on the planet, particularly as we look into 2024 and all the changes that are happening. It's super easy to sign up. You just click the link in the description box down below. It's super free, super informative. I think you're going to love that. And with that, I would like to welcome in Nichole Clark. Hi, Nichole. How are you today?
Great. Thanks for having me here, Kimberly. I'm excited to talk with you and your
I,
audience.
I'm excited to have you too. So you have an interesting story. It's different than some of the guests that I've had. Why don't you go ahead and take us back to your life before August of 2020?
Okay. I had a lot going on in my life before August. Let's see. First, let's say my story starts basically in 2017 when my dad suddenly and unexpectedly passed away. He had heart condition and he went in for surgery and everything was looking well, and he'd been recovering for about 7 months, and then unexpectedly passed away when he was trying to work out on an exercise bike of all things, and then he was found on, and that was like a devastating blow to me and my family, obviously. And it kind of woke me up because my dad was one that was like, work hard, play later, and he was very obsessed with his career for his whole life, and he kind of never got to the play part. And for me that was a huge lesson, because so many of us put off for someday what we think will make us happy. And my dad was happy. He did love to work. And he also missed out on a lot of things because he was waiting until he retired to be able to spend more time with the grandkids or go and do a lot of things like travel with us and stuff. So it was a big eye opener for me. I was, I think, 37 at the time, and I was like, I had been waiting for someday. I'd been a stay-at-home mom for I think 15 years at that time, and I just been waiting and waiting for my kids to graduate or move out, and then I'd think about what I wanted to do with myself or what I had time for. And so that was a huge catalyst for my personal development journey, for me saying, I might not have tomorrow even, let alone someday. So if I want to live a life of no regrets, I need to start now and not wait for any more time in the future. So I started reading and studying, and I really had an eye-opening moment where I had been trying so hard to be happy with my body and working out and obsessively dieting for years. And I had one of those aha moments as well on the scale, where I had finally, after months and months and months of being hangry and exhausted and just like wanting to eat more but didn't, I finally got to my goal weight, right? I was so excited, and I looked at the scale and I celebrated for like 10 seconds, and then I looked up and saw my body, and all the critical thoughts came right away. Oh, well, I'm still fat. I still have cellulite. I still have stretch marks. Like, I don't look any better and I don't feel any better. And it was like this aha moment where I call it my Grinch moment, where I realized that day that, oh, maybe happiness isn't found in a number. Maybe it's not found in my pants size or the scale, the number on the scale. Maybe it's not even found in my bank account number or how many likes and followers or comments I get. And it was just like this big awakening, like, I need to focus on learning what true happiness is and what peace really is. So I started diving in. I read hundreds of books, listened to thousands of hours of trainings and podcasts, and I got certified in life coaching and hypnotherapy and neurolinguistic practitioner. Like, I got all these different trainings under my belt. Enough so that I said, I need to share this with the world. I need to share it with other moms who are stressed out and don't know how to take 10 minutes for themselves because they're putting themselves on the back burner, right? So I started writing my first book. And at this time, I had been trying so hard to get pregnant with number 6. I had 5 kids, and since I was 11, I wanted 6. I don't know why. Probably it was because I was Mormon, raised Mormon, and like I really, really wanted to have a big family. And 6 just seemed like the golden number. But for some reason, number 6 was elusive. For 8 years, I tried and tried and tried to get pregnant with number 6. So I finally decided that I probably wasn't going to get number 6. I had an ectopic pregnancy, had to go to the emergency room and get emergency surgery that saved my life. And I realized, okay, well, maybe that was number 6, and I can just move on with my life and focus on the 5 that I have and be grateful. And my youngest then started kindergarten, and I was like, all right, this is the time for me. It's my time. And I started writing my book, signed up for this course to learn how to publish it. And then I got pregnant with number 6, of course.
Of course you did.
The timing. Like, what? I was like, oh, and I've heard that happens to a lot of people. Once you stop trying so hard to manifest something or make something happen in your life, then it happens because you're not creating resistance by wanting it so much anymore, if that makes sense. So anyway, I got pregnant with number 6 and I was super excited, had her in 2018. And then about 4 months later, I published my first book. So I basically say I had 2 babies in 1 year, because publishing a book is really similar to having a baby or creating a baby. You have them in your womb for 9 months. With the book, it was probably a little bit longer than that, like creating it, writing it, babying it, getting it edited, and like preparing. And then when you launch it, you really hope that people are going to love it and they're not going to call your baby ugly, right? Like when Emberly was born, she was just the joy of our lives. It was number 6, just like completed our family, and everyone in our family absolutely adored and loved her. And then I published the book, and it was just like this big, beautiful year of my life where all my dreams had come true all at once, right? And I was just living on cloud 9, and it was just a beautiful, beautiful thing. And unfortunately, there was a part in my book that I wrote about. I kept having this recurring nightmare. And it was this nightmare that one of my children was going to drown on my property. I had a pool and I had a pond, but I hadn't let my husband put those in because he was the one obsessed with water. I made him wait until all 5 of our kids could swim across the county pool and get back, and no problems. And then I got pregnant with Emberly, and it was just like this constant fear. And because of that nightmare, I had to do a lot of like preventative digging in my own personal development, and I call it fear setting. And I did that all in my first book when she was a toddler, like just little, and worked out like what would I do, because you have to figure out like what you can control in any circumstance, and a lot of those things are out of our control. So we have to figure out, how would I prevent it, first of all, if it's possible, which nothing is truly 100% preventable with other people's passings. And then, how would I handle it? How could I become a victor in this circumstance instead of a victim? And I worked through all of those things in my first book when Emberly was probably 7 or 8 months old, or I don't remember the timing exactly of the age, but it was a huge thing for me. And then COVID happened. And actually, right before COVID, I started questioning my belief system. I started questioning it when my dad died. I had been raised Mormon, lived it, loved it. My whole life was based around Mormonism. All my friends, all my family, like everything I believed, did, felt was all based in this religion that I had lived for 37, 38 years. And it was finally coming to this point where actually I don't know if I believe this anymore, and I don't feel empowered when I go to church. And so for a whole year, I'd go every Sunday and question why am I going here anymore? Like it doesn't feel good to my soul. It doesn't feel expansive. It actually makes me feel constricted. It makes me feel like I'm not worthy or not good enough. And at that point, I knew I was. I had gained enough self-confidence and self-love that I knew that I was good enough, even without all the dogma and the doctrine that was constantly make me feel less than. And I started questioning it so much that I was like, I really need to think about not coming back. And that was terrifying. It's so scary, especially like with Mormonism, it's considered, a lot of people call it a cult. I call it a high demand religion. It's very demanding. A lot of our time, energy, resources, a lot of our money goes into it. And I really wanted to be the best Mormon I could. But for some reason, I just couldn't anymore. I just couldn't do it. And my body started creating a disease. And I had a breathing problem for over a year with Emberly in my womb. And then even afterward, it kept getting worse and worse instead of better, to the point where I had to have throat surgery. And I realized then I had a meditation practice. And in that morning, when I realized it was my throat and not like my asthma or whatever, I realized that it was my throat chakra had closed in, and it was so small that it was like breathing through a tiny little straw. And I had to get surgery, and then everything in my life got better, exponentially better, because I could breathe again, and I had left the religion that I had loved and lived. And I want to say it got better for myself. Like I was free to believe what I wanted and to pursue what brought me happiness. And at the same time, everything fell apart. I had no friends and family that I could like open up to and be myself with anymore. You kind of get ostracized, and people are too afraid to ask you what made you leave the church. They don't want to know because they don't want to be fallen astray either. They don't want to be led astray or whatever. And that was really, really difficult. So that's all the kind of stuff that was leading up to I left the church, COVID happened, and then August of 2020 happened. So that's the backstory.
Yeah.
Hope I got it all in there.
And I can appreciate how once you decided that the church was not a good fit for you, how challenging that can be, because it's so much a part of your lifestyle, the Mormon church. In other words, it's not just something you do on Sunday. It is your entire social circle and everything that you do. So I can really appreciate that. That was a very brave decision.
Yeah, it ran everything, to the underwear I wore, to how I started my day, how I ended my day, what I did with my children. We always had family scripture study and prayer. Every Monday we had family home evening. Every Wednesday we had church like youth group, and I was the leader of a lot of those things. So it was a big upset in our whole family. And I was actually really surprised that when I announced to my kids I wasn't going back, they all celebrated and they were really excited because they didn't have to go back. And I was like, oh shoot, I thought I'd done a lot better job of indoctrinating them, but apparently not.
Yeah. So take us to August 2020 and kind of how your journey started.
Yeah, so at that point, everyone had been home from COVID since March. Everything was shut down in our little area. It was very, stick to ourselves, we're staying home. And it was beautiful because I had all 6 of my children home. They all loved Emberly so much, and I had lots of built-in babysitters. At that point, I had been doing life coaching, and I had, business to run online, and it was great having all these built-in babysitters. And it was just really, while everyone else is worried about toilet paper and all that stuff, luckily I had the Mormon background that teaches you to prepare and have a lot of food, like a whole year's worth of food storage and all that stuff. I had all that stuff at hand, so that wasn't a worry. I was just more in love with the idea of like, I have all my kids home and this is beautiful. And then in August, they started getting ready for school, and they were going back physically to school again. And it was my oldest daughter's senior year that year. So it was a big deal. And I wanted to take my kids shopping to get all their school supplies. And this was August 17th, like a few days before they were supposed to start school again. And I took Emberly with us because I had to have the whole family, everyone needed supplies. And it was her first time in probably 8 or 9 months, if not longer. And she was 18 months old at the time. It was her first time she'd been out of the house for a long time that wasn't just like in the car driving someone there and coming back. She got to get out of the car and see Walmart, and it was like Disneyland for her. She was so excited, pointing at all the little kids. She's like, I just had probably never seen little kids for a long time, and it was just the cutest thing. And at Walmart, I remember since it had been so long, I didn't remember to bring her sippy cup or her milk or anything to calm her down, because it'd been a while and I just forgot. I was all on school supply, right? But she was the perfect little angel. She's usually like an independent little, like, I'm gonna run around all over the place. And when she got tired, and I just put her in her crib and she'd go to sleep. But this was the first time we were out and about, and she was really tired and grumpy, but she let me hold her. And that was the first time in months that she just let me cuddle with her. And it was such a beautiful gift because I love cuddling. Like, it's my favorite thing in the world to have my babies on my shoulder. And I got a whole hour at least in Walmart getting to hold her close to me. And little did I know that would be the last cuddle I'd ever get with her, because later on that evening, I took two of my daughters to a birthday party and came home to find an ambulance in our driveway, and my husband and children. I'm sorry, every time I tell it, I get choked up, but to find that she'd drowned. And I had to make a decision right there if I was going to follow what I had written about in my book and choose, because in my nightmare, and that recurring night I told you about, one of my children drowned on our property. I blamed my husband. We got a divorce. It ruined our whole lives. Like, everything fell apart. And I knew that I could make a choice not to blame anyone, not to feel guilty, even though that's been that's been a struggle, and to just choose to know that everything's always happening for me, even if it's the worst thing you could possibly imagine. And later that evening, I was on a life flight with her to hospital. It was 2 hours away. I was in a helicopter ride with her, and I just had this feeling that I had to give her permission, like, just have a heart to heart and say, it's okay if you go, we're gonna be okay. I've prepared for this, even though I didn't want to believe it. I didn't want to believe all the premonitions I'd had her whole life. And but I knew that I had been preparing for years for this moment, even though in hindsight, I knew, right? But in those moments, I was like, no, those are just intrusive thoughts, or like, I don't want to believe that. So that evening, she did end up passing away, and we had, luckily, permission from the hospital to have all of our children come and say their final goodbyes. And whew, that was the hardest and worst moment of my whole life.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. It's something that you just learn to live with, you never ever recover from. So tell me,
and even just sharing it, it's like, it's still hard to talk about it.
it is hard to talk about. And the thing that strikes me about your story, Nichole, is, on some level, mothers know. We get that inkling, and you had that premonition. And I've spoken with other mothers whose children have transitioned early, and there always seems to be just even a breath of knowing. And it's interesting to me that our soul kind of, and I look at it as a loving way, kind of prepare us for what's coming, so that when it happens, it doesn't do anything to lessen the pain, but it's certainly having that little bit of knowing that that potential is there somehow prepares us. So what happened next for you?
That's a great question. A lot. I was instantly bombarded with so much love and attention, and people from all over the community came, and our whole family flew out for the funeral. And it was actually just a beautiful experience because we were able to receive so much love and felt so much gratitude at the same time of grief and pain. And I just realized how beautiful this conglomeration of all the emotions it once was. And it was just a really neat experience to see how something so tragic brought people together and brought our community out. A lot of people that I didn't know just came and just raised money for the funeral. It was just a beautiful thing. We had so much help. And within a few weeks, after everyone left and the flowers started to die, then the real pain starts setting in. And I had a friend, I think she referred me or something to a psychic medium, and I went to the psychic medium on a Zoom call. And in that call, she basically channeled for me and said that I had planned this with Emberly before we both came here as a soul contract, that we would use this to write a book that would help expand the collective consciousness. And together we would open up a lot of people's eyes and help them with a lot of things, including deconstructing from religion, parenting on Earth, what life is like after Earth, and all these things. And well, she didn't tell me all that. let me just say, she just told me we were going to write a book together, and I was like, wait, what? I had no idea. I had always thought I'd write a book about Emberly, but I never thought it would actually be like because she died and I channeled her. But I learned soon after that how to channel her, and it was a really easy, beautiful, effortless process, actually. Like, I was actually shocked how easily it came to me. I had already been meditating every morning and doing a process where I just connect with my higher self, so I was used to that. It was something that I was already in tune with. And every morning I would get up on my laptop, and right after meditating, I would just start talking to her with my fingers. I'd ask questions, and then soon after I would find my fingers moving and her just channeling through my body, writing all the answers. And it was so beautiful. I just didn't want it to end. Every morning I'd look forward to this. It was just like the most open, gorgeous dialogue I've ever had in my life. It felt like I had my own little divine angel, like more so than prayer, because a lot of our prayers go unanswered or we feel like nobody's listening. With this, it was like instant connection, instant prayer answered, like not even prayer. It was just like I was there receiving such gorgeous and beautiful inspiration and divine help from my little girl, and also from my dad and other guides who just gave me answers to anything I wanted to know. And it was so enlightening and beautiful and life-changing and terrifying. I was terrified to share it for a long time. But it was a beautiful experience, and I still look back at that with the most fond memories. I mean, it's only been 3 years. We just published our book together in December of last year. Actually, no, it's 2 years now, 23, 22. Yeah. Anyway, so it's been a beautiful process, and a lot has happened since then, but I want to give you a chance to talk or whatever, ask questions.
Well, I'm curious about, you said it was fairly easy when you started the writing. How did you even know to do that? And where did you go to sort of connect in with that process?
Well, at first I experimented with just talking to her out loud, and I'd always felt like I would receive things. But then I was like, if I'm supposed to write a book, I can't remember all that and then write it back, So I knew that I had to just start doing it on the computer. And I had heard of a process and done this before called automatic writing, which is where you get in the meditative state and you just receive from your guides whatever comes out of you, and you just write. And anyone can do it. I don't think you have to be a certain religion or belief system or even a certain vibration to be able to receive from your higher self or from your soul or from your guides or whatever you want to call it, from God, answers to your own questions. We can all be our own personal guru. So I already believed that and had experiences with that. So it wasn't like brand new to me. The channeling was. I didn't ever like try to connect with a certain spirit or soul up there, but instantly I knew and felt it. Like I felt her with me every time. And it was so comforting and such a beautiful process. So I knew just asking and writing it down, it just started happening really easy. Like within 4 or 5 months, we had over 200,000 words written together.
Wow.
It was a lot.
So let me ask you, okay, so you were automatic writing prior to working with Emberly. Could you actually feel an energy shift when she would come in?
Well, I didn't do a lot of automatic writing before her. So it felt more like I was receiving from my higher self, or I was journaling in a different dimension kind of thing before that. With Emberly, for sure, I felt like somebody else took over my hands. I didn't feel like, and I couldn't remember a lot of the things that I was writing either way. Like even when with automatic writing, I'd have to read it back sometimes. But with Emberly, it felt like I wasn't in my body. It wasn't me, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does make sense. So how did you, first of all, how did you get comfortable with this? And secondly, what happened when you shared this with your family and friends?
Good question. I I had a hard time throughout the book. I kept questioning. I'm like, you were only 18 months old and you didn't speak full sentences, hardly any words when you passed. So like, how do I know this is really you? I doubted that a lot. And a lot of people, when I started sharing it, I actually started sharing a lot of her messages on Facebook right away because she told me to, and I felt compelled to, and I just thought everyone else needs to hear this. This is amazing. So I started this hashtag lessons from Emberly, and every time I would, tons of people would just comment and say that's the most beautiful thing I've ever heard, or like I can't wait to hear from Emberly again. And a lot of people on Facebook were really excited about it. My family, no, they were not. I don't think they ever commented or said anything. I think they just tried to skirt around the topic, like, oh, you do whatever you need to heal. But I think a lot of people thought that I was making it up or that I was just trying to make myself feel better. That's what a lot of people, say who don't believe in it, and that's fine. I don't judge them or feel like that matters to me because it was my own personal experience and it's what I believe and it's what brought me peace. And a lot of people who have read the book have reached out and said it's just been such a healing process for them as well. So my idea is even if it's not Emberly or even if it wasn't God or source or whatever I want to call it or they want to call it, if it brings somebody peace and helps them heal through one of the worst nightmares they have, why do people have to judge it and say it's wrong or bad? For me, it's like it's not wrong or bad if it makes you feel better in such a peaceful way where you're not harming other people. I'm not feeling better because I'm hurting. Like a lot of people hurt people when they're hurting. I am in so much pain, but I'm helping people by sharing it and being vulnerable and sharing my story. So I don't understand why people get angry about that, but that's on them and not me. So it's been
Yeah.
a journey for sure because I was really terrified to share it for a long time. Because a lot of it's not anti-church or anything. It's not anti anything. It's actually the most loving, unconditionally embracing everyone and loving everyone kind of teachings that I'd ever read and felt. And it just felt so beautiful, the oneness of everyone being one and loved and accepted and embraced where they are and with no judgment. But it was so different from how I had been raised with there's only one right way and everyone else is wrong. They might have bits and pieces of the truth, but they don't have the fullness like we have. And now it's like, oh well, actually I think you're missing part of the fullness when you're judging other people is not having the fullness. So it was it was a beautiful and terrifying and wonderful experience.
Yeah, I would imagine it was particularly transformative for you. And during the process, the connection you must have felt with Emberly must have been so delicious to be able to feel her energy and connect with her again in that way.
Oh, yes. And I wish that I still felt like that. I still have the connection, but I knew immediately when we got to the end of the book that her job or whatever we had contracted with was done. I felt her leave. I can still feel her every once in a while and we can still connect whenever I want, but I knew that the duty or the responsibility of like getting this book out there was done. And that was hard. I didn't want to, so I kept trying to find more questions, but after a while you just run out. You don't know what else to ask about. So that
Mhm.
was a difficult time for me, but also I just felt so grateful that I had that time because I know a lot of moms or people who lose loved ones don't have that. And I was very, very blessed. And I'm so grateful for it.
Oh, it's a nice respite from life on earth when you can connect to those in spirit because the love is so profound. What were you surprised at? What did you learn? How did your perception change based on the information that Amberly shared with you?
Oh, so many things. Like we have hundreds of topics that we talked about. There's a whole topical guide in the back of the book, but for me, what helped me the most was I've had experienced a lot of pain, both emotional and physical. So I complained about it all the time to her, like chronic pain with my neck and my jaw and my throat and all these things that I was physically challenged with all the time and constantly resisting because I didn't like them. Nobody likes pain. We want to numb from it or escape or do whatever we can to not feel it. But she told me to embrace the pain, and whether it was emotional or physical, and to treat it like an orphan, because she knew that I had a heart for orphans. I served in orphanages in Ecuador back when I was 19, and it was one of the most beautiful experiences of my life. I always wanted to adopt, but then I had enough kids of my own that that kind of like got put on the back burner. But she tells me that my inner child is like an orphan if you don't embrace it and learn to comfort it and love it and become aware of what I need inside. And when we resist our emotions or we resist our pain, what we resist persists. And so she told me to treat all pain, whether it's physical or emotional or mental or whatever, like an orphan. If I saw an orphan on the street, I would run to it, embrace them, give them food, give them love, give them shelter, do whatever I could to help them feel comfortable and accepted and loved where they are. And that's what she said to pain, to embrace pain, to accept it, to love it, to welcome it without wanting it to go away, which is, I think, the hardest lesson for most of us is like, but I want to do this so that it goes away, right? And she said, that's not the point. It's learning to live with it in such a way that it doesn't bother you if it's there. It's part of who you are, and to embrace it. And that was such a hard lesson. I'm still learning it. Like, it's, how you can know something but not quite embody it yet. I'm getting much, much better. But it's been very difficult, and there's an ebb and flow with the feelings that you have, but I'm learning to allow all of them to come, and I'm getting so much better. She helped me so much, and she's helped a lot of people through chronic pain of divorce, pain of child loss or parent loss or loss of any kind of an animal. All of those things have ways of physically hurting us as well. If we don't allow them to be, they can stop our chakras. Like I talked about earlier with my throat closing in, that's my throat chakra, which represents your ability to speak your truth. And each chakra represents an energy centered in our body that if we are not allowing our pain to be expressed and felt and loved and accepted where it is and what it is, then it causes dis-ease or problems in our physical being. So that's, I guess, for me, the one that I always talk about because it's been the most life-changing for me. But there's so many more topics in there that they're just so life-changing. I loved it so much.
Yeah. What of all the things that Amberly shared with you, what was the most surprising for you? Or what created a paradigm shift for you?
That's a good question. What's coming to me right now is that so many of us think that we're the only one that feels some way, or that our belief system is the only right way. We feel there's a black and white duality thinking in our culture, especially, where it's my way or the highway. You're wrong if you don't believe the same way as me, or if you're not the same color, or you're not the same religion, whatever it might be. We divide ourselves so much. In the United States, we are so divided.
I know.
And in the world, we're so divided, right? And she teaches me that everyone is accepted and loved and necessary to the wholeness of all that is. And the title of our book is Remember All That Is, because all that is all encompassing, and that's what we consider to be God. I no longer believe in a narcissistic old white fatherly figure in the sky who is cisgender and has only one way of getting back to him. I believe that we are all one, and that we all are instantly received back into that light and love when we pass. And one of the things that my editor, when we were deciding on the book title, she had talked about, well, maybe we could say return to all that is, because that's what Emberly did. And she said, when you read the whole book from cover to cover, It's kind of what happens to you. She was saying about me, like, you start here and you go here, and it's like you're returning as well to this remembrance, like you're just returning to all that is. And so I worked with that title for a long time. And then in November, the like year and a half after Emberly had passed, I went to a darkness retreat because my soul called me there. And in that retreat, I was alone in a room for 10 days in the darkness, where I was able to then ask for proof. I really wanted proof. Do I really need to publish this book? Because at that point I was still terrified. What should I call it if I do? And how can I feel safe within my body sharing these truths with other people? And I got answers to all of that, but the most beautiful moment in my whole experience with this was naming the book, because it was this profound message that I think people enjoy hearing because it helps them as well. She said, yeah, returning to all that is a great title, but it's not really how it works, because you are now, and this goes for everyone. I'm not just talking to me, right? You are now, you always have been, and you always will be an intricate and necessary part of the wholeness of all that is. And in another part of the book, she said, all that is would not be all that is without all that is. And she said, an ember, which is what we named her, Emberly, when it is away from a fire, when it like separates from the fire, it looks like it's died, but it can easily come back to life with a little attention and air and force. So she said, name the book Remember All That Is, and highlight the ember, because we are all like an ember when we come here to earth. We feel separate. We feel like we're not part of the wholeness, and it's scary, and it's an illusion. When we remember who we are, we come back to full life. Just like a roaring fire, we feel warm, we feel embraced, we feel comforted, and we feel whole, because we remember our wholeness that has always been there and always will be. It's simply a remembering, and that was such a beautiful moment for me.
Oh my gosh, I just got goosebumps. I mean, what more is there to say? That's just such a beautiful sentiment that describes everything. This is just, I kind of look at Earth as this play, or this game that we're in, to sink down into duality and into the third dimension and see if we can figure our way back up again. And that was just a beautiful way of putting it all together. I have a question for you, because I think what we're seeing on the planet right now is we're getting so much help from the spirit world through mediums and channelers, and there's just a lot of great information, and different teachers around the world really bringing in the oneness concept. I'm really fascinated with you and Emberly making this agreement prior to incarnating, and then all that happened to unfold to bring it to fruition.
Is that a question? I'm sorry, I missed the question part.
Well, I'm fascinated with how it unfolded, and how the agreement between you two prior to incarnating was so important, and then how it played out in your life. Do you ever look back on that, and are you just blown away with how it all came together so brilliantly?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I don't remember consciously ever making that agreement or having a soul contract. That's just something that the psychic medium told me, and instantly rang true to my spirit. Like, I felt inside, like, that makes so much sense. That's why I've been receiving all these premonitions. That's why I've been preparing for this moment in time, and why I was able to handle the grief, I think, a lot better than most people, because I had been preparing for this moment. Maybe not knowingly, but like my soul had been giving me so many nudges. Like her whole life, it was like, hey, stop and take a picture right now, or read her a book right now. You're going to miss these moments. And there were so many moments during her life that it prepared me for that. So when she passed and I was able to channel her right away, it wasn't as shocking as you would think it would be for me, because it was just like the natural progression of like, yeah, this is what I'm called to do. This is what I'm here for. And so I think that's why it came so easily, and it wasn't like something I questioned. I just did it because I felt I felt like I needed to, and I felt like I wanted to, and it was just like this yearning. When you find your purpose, when you find something that lights you up and that brings you so much joy and peace, you do it. You do it without question. And that was like such an instant connection, and it was like just brought me so much joy and purpose. And then when I shared it with other people, I was just always so shocked that it helped them too. I was like, this is such a beautiful thing. It's been such a beautiful journey. And I even say now that I'm grateful it all happened. And people are like, you're grateful your daughter died? And no, I mean, I wish I could rewrite that, right? But one of my favorite quotes is from Peter Crone. He says, what happened happened and couldn't have happened any other way because it didn't. And it's up to us to make the choice to make something from it or not. And we don't have to. I could have lived in sorrow and grief the rest of my existence, and they would not have judged that. Emberly would not have been mad if I didn't live out the soul contract. It would not have been any eternal consequences or going to hell or any of that. I would have been just fine. And she told me that in the book, because I was like, what if this isn't worth it? Like, what if this sharing this, and it's so scary to me, I don't want to do it. And she's like, that's fine too. You don't have to. And that's the beauty of it. They're never writing it so much in stone that you have to do it or else. There's no consequences. It's just we get to choose if this lights us up, if this brings us joy, if this is something we want to pursue. And even if it scares us to death, like I have made it my motto in life to never oh, what's the word? Now I'm forgetting my motto. That's funny. To make regret to make regret my biggest fear. So I didn't want to get to someday, right? I wanted to live now so that I don't regret anything when I do pass. If you've read any death books, or like people, I can't remember who wrote the book, but about people who are on their deathbed and what they all say. One of their big things is their regret. They didn't do what they really wanted to do in their life. And I didn't want to do that. I wanted to live every day like this was my last. And that's something that I think only having gone through death or grief really lights you up, like wakes you up to really embracing what life you have, what time you have left, whether it's another 50 years or it's another 5 minutes. I don't know. None of us really do. Even if we get premonitions, we still doubt it and question it and aren't sure, right? There's very few of us that are very sure of when we're going to pass, but I want to live every single day with as much joy and beauty and gratitude that I can, that I have on earth. Because I know from what Emberly has told me and a lot of other things I've read and listened to, that it goes in a blink of an eye. As a soul, it's literally like minutes. Like they don't have time there, right? But it doesn't feel like how it feels as a human. We feel like it takes forever, and we have so much don't have a lot of patience. But as souls, it's like that's just, it's so small and minuscule to our eternal existence that they laugh at it, that we get so wrapped up in time here.
I know they think it's so, what they think is useful and fun is so different than what we think is useful and fun when you're here on Earth.
100%.
Yeah.
She even tells me in the book, pain on Earth can be more pleasurable than pleasure. And I was like, what? No, it can't. I was really resistant to that. And she was like, no, as a soul, we are always connected to all that is. We don't feel any lack. We don't feel pain. We don't feel like we need anything. So we go to Earth to feel those things, so that we feel contrast, so that we expand, and we're able to experience things that we don't have as souls when we're already whole and complete. And we still are as humans. We just forget it. We come here to forget. We do it on purpose as like a game with ourselves. So it's really not as serious as so many of us make it out to be.
I know. And it's human nature to take everything so seriously almost. And if you can get to that place that Emberly talks about of just going along for the ride and enjoy it, it's a treasure to be here, even though sometimes it does not feel that way.
Yeah, 100%. And one of the quotes she's given me is, focus on the fun. You don't have to get anything done. So many of us feel like we have to do things, but it's always a choice. It's always a choice. Whether you wake up today, you're going to wake up if you're supposed to. You don't really choose that part, maybe on a conscious level, but consciously we can choose whether we go to work today, whether we take a shower, what we're going to put in our mouth, who we're going to talk to, and how we talk to them. There's so many things every single day that we are not consciously aware of that we are either choosing or we're not choosing, and that make or break our human experience. But there's no judgment from them. We can't do it wrong. And it's always going to teach us something, whether it was a good life or a bad life. I put that in air quotes because, that's a judgment, a human judgment that we would say.
Yeah, it is a human judgment. And there's some bad lives that are so educational that I imagine the soul learns so much during that time. You are such a
Yeah, not just
beautiful
that person, but their family.
as well, right? All the people
Sorry,
around them.
there's a lot.
So now you are such a beautiful ambassador for Imberly and for the message. What are you doing now? So what's next for you?
I am in a very interesting place right now where I still do coaching. Haven't been doing it a ton. I did art for a long time. And now I'm just kind of stepping back and kind of disassociating myself from all selling and business and trying to make something of it. And I'm just focusing on being and just enjoying every day and every moment and what comes. I love helping people. So if people reach out, they can find my art on our website, they can find my books, they can find a whole bunch of free things that I've created. But right now, honestly, since the new year, I've had a lot of health issues. And I'm like, you know what? I'm just stepping back and I'm focusing on feeling good physically and really just loving where I am and not judging myself. Like for so long, the last couple years, I've focused so much on my business and trying to earn money and trying to get ahead, that it kind of got to a point where it was hurting me. Like it was making me feel like I wasn't good enough or like I was a failure. My nervous system was shot. And I just took a step back since January and I said, enough is enough. I don't need to prove anything to anyone, especially not to myself. I already know I'm good enough. I have come to a place of so much self-love and healing that I know I'm whole, I'm complete. I don't need anyone else's money, or I don't need to tell them I'm good enough, that them to tell me that I'm good, that I'm a good author. Like that doesn't matter to me anymore. It's beautiful to hear if I'm helping other people, but it doesn't, like, I don't need it anymore. It's not like a human ego need anymore. I'm kind of disassociating from this. I'm playing a role of Nichole, but I'm not Nichole. I am whole and complete and here to just be a light to show other people that they can feel that way too. Does that make sense?
It makes perfect sense. You have been so delightful and charming. Thank you so much. How can we find out more about you?
I would just say my website. It's www.embersglowstudio.com. And that happened after Emberly died as well, where I started being an artist, which I'd never done that either before. And oh my goodness, some of the most gorgeous pieces. I'm not going to brag to my own board, but I can tell you what, I've created some amazing magic. I call it creating pearls in my pain, because pearls come when oysters get a piece of sand stuck in them. It's painful. They don't like it. They resist it. They move and move and move until something beautiful has happened. And that's what my website is. I think that I created gorgeous art with crystals and ocean art with real sand, and so many of those things people bring to their homes, and they feel and remember all that is. They remember the wholeness, they remember love just from feeling my art or from reading my book. And that's just been such a blessing for me. Like I don't make a lot of money from any of this. Like a lot of people said, oh, they actually said you killed your daughter so you could get famous with it. I'm like, oh wow, what happened to you? Like that people could go there is just shocking to my mind. And I don't blame them. I just wonder what happened to you to judge somebody so instantly and go to the darkest, most awful thing you can judge somebody for. It just makes me sad. Anyway, I'm totally off tangent, but I've just done so much healing and so much beauty has come from this experience that I just love to share it with other people so that they can know that it's possible, so they know that healing is within their grasp as well. And a beautiful acronym that I have recently learned for HEAL, because I've learned that we are already all healed. We're already whole and complete, right? It's just our human aspect that doesn't feel whole, our ego. So HEAL, an acronym for that, is human emotions or experiences accepted with love.
Oh, I love
That's an
that.
acronym for HEAL. When you accept or embrace your emotions and your experiences with love, you heal them. They don't become something that makes you struggle or feel less than or horrible the rest of your life. They become something that helps you feel whole and loved.
Oh, and what a beautiful way to wrap up, Nichole. Thank you so much for joining us today. It's been lovely. I will have your website and all your information listed down below for those of you who would like to get in touch. Thank you so much. I hope that you have a lovely rest of your life.
Thank you so much for letting me come here and share my story. I appreciate it.
It's wonderful. All right. Thanks, everyone. Bye now. I hope you enjoyed this video. Coming up next, this is a good one. Or you might really like this one too. Either one of them could be perfect for you. Before you leave, don't forget to subscribe.